Welcome to Against the Current, a podcast created to give public and private sector leaders, both current and emerging, as well as advocates and cultural voices, a platform to share their perspectives with candor and conviction. Each episode goes beyond talking points to uncover the real stories, challenges, and lessons shaping today's most important causes. These conversations connect directly to decision makers, donors, and supporters who want to understand not just what an organization does, but why it matters. You'll hear how faith guides leadership, how conviction drives action, and how bold ideas are shaping the future of freedom and culture, both here at home and around the world. Here is your host, Matt Waters.
All right. Well, welcome to Against the Current podcast. My name is Matt Waters, and I'm delighted to have Tristan Azbej. And tell me if I did that right, Tristan, your last name, with Hungary Helps.
Tristan Azbej, it was spiritos. Thank you for having me.
Azbej, I know. And it's Armenian, right?
Yes, I am a Hungarian by my loyalty to my country and by citizenship, but I have some Armenian Christian blood in my veins running.
Yes, and Tristan, we've known each other for a few years now. I'm wearing my Hungary U.S. lapel pin, Hungary flag U.S. lapel pin. As you know, I'm seeking citizenship in Hungary because I have ancestors that go back to the Austro-Hungarian Empire, which, by the way, I might put a plug in for. You guys need to do what Trump's doing over here. And he's trying to take over Greenland, and maybe you need to go back into Austria and into Slovakia, into Romania, and reclaim your lands. But that's a different conversation.
We believe in strong European nations and nation states who are cooperating but keeping their identity. So we want a strong Hungary, neighboring strong cooperative Austria, and so on.
Yeah, and you're building that. We can talk about that. I mean, the rise of what's happening in Europe. Kind of that you all. I think Viktor Orban, your prime minister, said in the speech that you're the Lone Star State of Europe, and he gave that address at CPAC in Dallas, Texas, a few years ago. And I think that's right. My family, we visited there, and it's a remarkable difference when you go from the West into the East. And I can say that, as an American, you take an airplane flight into Heathrow, and you get off the airport, and the advertising you see there for LGBTQ or, all these types of things is one thing. And then you get off the airport in Budapest, and you see a ticker tape that says God, family, country. And there are families represented, moms and dads raising children. So your policy toward family is one that is to be admired. And I'll tell you the other thing. Yeah, it's incredible. And the other thing you see is you'll feel safety on the streets. We went to Hungary with our daughters, 13 and 16, and they could walk the streets easily by themselves, anytime, day or night, and feel very, very safe. And we could not say that about other cities in Europe today, in Paris or London or almost any other place in the West. And so what you're doing is it's absolutely working. But we'll maybe get into some of that, Tristan. Tell folks tell them your title and kind of what Hungary Helps is all about.
Yes, so my name is rather uncharacteristic, even for a Hungarian name, but my office title is even more unique. Some would consider it to be strange, but I'm sure that you yourself and the viewers will not find it strange, but meaningful. The title of our office is the State Secretariat for the Aid of Persecuted Christians. And you heard it right. This is not a church ministry. This is not a charity organization. This is one governmental department of the Hungarian Foreign Ministry. And that's because the Hungarian government, Prime Minister Viktor Orban and the leaders of the Hungarian government, around 8 years ago, recognized the same fact what President Trump voiced or mentioned at the last United Nations General Assembly in September. And that fact is that today Christianity is the most persecuted religious group. And by this is not a sweeping statement. This is not entering the race of victimhood. This is a facts based statement. By numbers, Christians are the most persecuted, discriminated, threatened, violated religious group in the world. According to some surveys, there are very few surveys made in this matter, but there are more than 380 million people in the world who are discriminated, threatened, attacked, persecuted innocently because they are followers of Jesus Christ. The Hungarian government recognized this in 2016, and immediately they have set up the first ever governmental unit in the world to support persecuted Christians. And right after that, a humanitarian aid program for them, which is called Hungary Helps program. I have been leading this program for 8 years now.
8 years. So let me go back to something, and you said, because of Jesus Christ, we're persecuted. The most persecuted religion in the world today. Why is that? What's your sense as a Christian man, a Christian leader? What does it tell you that it's, Christians that are persecuted and not other religious groups? What singles us out? What's the why there?
Well, there is a very practical and also an ideological explanation to that. The practical part is plain statistics. Christianity is the largest religious group in the world currently, but also that means that Christians are that religious group who are also the most numerous living in minorities. So even though we are the largest religious group in the world, there are hundreds of millions of Christians who are living in their countries as minorities. The other one is that Christians hold their beliefs and their biblical values very strongly. And there are other ideals and movements who are opposing those values. Like what you have seen at the Hungarian airport when you arrive to Budapest airport, you will signs family-friendly Hungary. You will signs. There are many the radical movements who are opposing these sort of values. For example, the woke movement in the West, but also Christianity, Christian people, but more importantly, Christian values are also targeted by radical extremist ideologies on the other part of the world, such as jihadism or political Islamism. So I think these are the two main factors that main Christianity the most numerous persecuted religious group in the world.
And you mentioned in the report, and I'll hold it up for viewers because I want, if you're interested in getting this, you should look at this. This is the Budapest Report on Christian Persecution, 2022 to 2024. It was just published last year, and you guys have done multiple editions of this. You open up with your, in your introduction to the book, and you talk about Africa. I mean, Africa is a place where a lot of people live there. There's a lot of Christians that are there. There are also a lot of Muslims there. And you talk about a Christian minority in some of these countries. And just the sheer numbers you're mentioning are mind-boggling. I think you said in here at some point that 1 in 9 Christians are suffering persecution for their faith. 1 in 9. I mean, that's no other faith has to do that. I mean, and so it's because of the stand that Christians take. They believe in family. They believe, but with Islam, they believe in family. They believe in God, but they believe in a different version of that. So that's more of a religious war, right? Would you put it in the kind of a religious war category?
No, I would not put it as a religious war because I have met many compassionate, peace-loving Muslim people during my. I have met some relatives of Muslim faith teachers who sacrificed their lives standing in front of the terrorists, protecting the Christians. I would call it a political war. This is not a Christian-Muslim war, but this is not even a Christian Islamist war. It is Islamism, which is a political ideology with religious references attacking Christians. There are few locations in the world where there are, it's a symmetrical conflict, but where we work in Nigeria and other parts of Africa, in the DRC, in the Middle East, what we are seeing is that radical Islamists, once again, uh, political movement with religious reference, are attacking Christians, and some other radical movements, such as communists and Marxists. Currently, the country where they persecute Christians the most, the least safe or the most dangerous country for Christians is North Korea, where atheist communism is persecuting Christians.
Yeah, atheist communism. Yeah, right, exactly. Let's go to we talk about Africa. The other place is Asia, and primarily China, North Korea, communist countries. You have, in Hungary, real experience with communism. I mean, you all were handed to Joseph Stalin after the end of World War II by America and Great Britain, to our shame. That should have never happened. It happened. And you lived through communism for a long time. So we talked about, you have, as a Hungarian, real experience dealing with communism and really the impact on Christianity. The state comes in, it's an anti-God political philosophy that wants to eradicate any vestiges of church-going people, Protestant, Catholic, Buddhist, Uyghur, whatever it is. They want to eliminate any belief in a higher power. I guess this is maybe a twofold question, but what did the Hungarians learn through 70 years of, communist rule? What was the impact on the church, I guess, is what I want to go. And is it still carry on to this day?
Well, first of all, we have many unique things about our office and our government program, but one thing that is unique about this building where I'm sitting now is that we have a chapel in the basement that we have established here. This is the only chapel in the Hungarian ministerial office, could be in Europe as well. And in that chapel, which is a Catholic chapel, but an ecumenical place of worship and prayer, we hold relics from martyred, persecuted Christians. And we have relics from the Middle East, from ancient times of Christian martyrs, but we have also a relic of a Hungarian martyred bishop, Bishop Zoltán Mesling. He was imprisoned by the communists here in Hungary in 1953, and because of torture in a few years later, he died. So we have his remains and relic in this very governmental office building chapel. And this martyred Christian bishop was murdered when my father was 3 years old. So this is a close anti-Christian persecution for Hungarians and for people who once were trapped behind the Iron Curtain. It is not a distant historical thing. When we ask that how come the Hungarian government and people are helping Christians in Nigeria and Pakistan, so far away from our country, the answer is that this is close to us. Even myself, I was it's still in school when communism collapsed. But before that, once my head teacher at that time visited our home, and I've seen the crucifix on the wall, I had to leave that school 2 months after. This is a soft type of discrimination, but it was anti-church, anti-Christian. Maybe this is the part why we have this special sensitivity and solidarity towards supporting persecuted Christians. Hungary is not the biggest, not the wealthiest member state of the European Union. We still need to spend our own development, yet we started this program for the persecuted Christians because this sort of Christian solidarity is deeply imprinted in the Hungarian spirit. But there is another thing concerning what we can learn from communism. The basic idea for communism that persecuted the church was cultural Marxism. And we see the same thing happening in the West. The woke ideology is basically a culturally Marxist ideology. It is not only contesting Christian ideas, but they want to censor, they want to eradicate, they want to push out all Christian reference from the public space and the public discourse. And by now they are getting more aggressive, to say it more totalitarian, and they are also sanctioning those who voice their Christian value-based opinion as well. You don't have that historical experience that we have here from our childhood and from our parents and grandparents' generations, but please trust our historical experience. The woke movement is the same type of totalitarian movement. It's coming from this same genetics as cultural Marxism, ideological genetics, of course.
Yeah, and it's interesting that you say that, right? Because you guys were enslaved under communist rule for 70 years, and the West was free. But here, the free West is lurching towards totalitarianism, wokeism, Marxism, and you all now stand as a bulwark against Brussels, open borders, gender ideology that doesn't define a man or a woman, wants to break down the families, and you're calling it for what it is, and you're also taking a lot of heat for it. I mean, I think Prime Minister Orban met with Trump, I believe it was just in the last week or so, where he talked about the fine that Hungary must pay to the EU for not opening up your borders. Talk about that a minute, if you can.
Well, yes, starting with the end, currently Hungary is paying 1 million euros fine every single day for keeping our borders closed from illegal mass migration. You heard it right. Every single day, 1 million euros. So that's over 1 million US.
Yeah, over $1 million US dollars a day. That's that's every month is $30 million. You're at yeah, that's a lot of money.
Yes, and also more than 10 billion euros, of EU funding that belongs to Hungary is frozen because we are resisting the gender ideology, and we are not implementing in our own legal system the recognition of the 70 some so-called genders and gay marriage and so on. So 1 million euros fine every day for protecting our nation, but the rest of Europe from illegal mass migration, or let's say an invasion on Europe, and more than 10 billion euros frozen because we are not letting gender ideology ruining our children and our families. And believe, with the Hungarian state budget, it hurts. It's a lot, but there is no high price. There is no too high price that one can pay for keeping their country and their culture and their families safe for the future. Yet, this is great injustice, and this is because we are against the woke, totalitarian Brussels mainstream politics. I remember the title of this podcast is Against the Current. I think that you had the right choice when you invited someone Hungarian to talk about suing against the current. This is what we do every single day. We pay the price for it, but it's worth it. Still, this is not how things should be. I think in Brussels we should have the representatives of strong, cooperating but strong European nations. This is not the case yet. We have the representatives when we talk about the mainstream of global interest of the Soros network, and nowadays, since they have been defeated, also the American left-wing so-called democratic power centers also relocated to Brussels as well.
On that note, Hungary serving as a bulwark against immigration. So you're standing firm. You're literally paying a price, and they're holding up funding to you that rightfully belongs to you as a member state of the EU. A couple of places I would go with that. I wonder if you go the way of Britain and do I don't know how you do a Brexit in Hungary, but that's one piece. But as you make that stand and you bless in a certain way, you're blessing the other they don't even, maybe unknowingly, you're blessing the other countries by, maybe slowing immigration down because they have to go around Hungary. That's something the Hungarians have done. You've blessed Europe. I mean, as I read the history of Hungary, it's amazing what Stephen did, your first emperor, your first king, who converts to Christianity, who brings the Hungarian people into the kingdom of God, the kingdom of Christ, and paves a way, really opens a way for the church to go back and reclaim the Holy Lands, and stop the Turks from coming over. I mean, you guys held the line there. You opened a passageway to the Middle East, so the Europeans could go there and fight these, the Crusades and all that sort of thing. Um, so you played a really an outsized role. You're punching above your weight is how I would put it in America. We say you're a scrappy 100-pound fighter, but you're taking down this big Goliath, and so that's to be commended. And let me ask you, are you guys standing alone, Tristan? I mean, are there other countries that are refusing immigration, like Poland or Slovakia?
Well, it is true. I'm not trying to create an image of a heroic nation here, but historical facts are facts. Hungary was the westernmost country where the Mongol Empire could reach, and we stopped them. We suffered a lot, but we stopped. Then the Ottoman Empire reached Hungary. They occupied most of Hungary for 160 years, but that was the wall that protected the Christian Europe from the Ottoman Empire. Later, during the Second World War, we were occupied by Nazi Germany, and for 40 years we have suffered from Soviet and communist dictatorship and occupation because we were the westernmost country, but behind the iron curtain. So we know something about protecting Christian civilization, and by punching above our weight, once again, I'm not trying to create like a historical, like an epic ideal of our nation. We have our own, mistakes and weaknesses, but imagine that all these historical deeds were done by a country which is today only 10 million people, and it's always been a by number small nation. And today we recognize and realize that once again Christianity as a civilization and as a culture is under attack from two fronts. One is violent anti-Christian persecution that takes place mostly in Africa, Middle East, and Asia. But we also see, for example, Islamist anti-Christian terror attacks in Europe and in the West. That makes Christianity the most persecuted religious group in the world. But also in the West, as I have already discussed, there is a very strong attack on Christianity by the so-called woke movement. Maybe that's the best way to describe it. And we realize that it might be our calling as a nation, our national vocation, to once again do our best what a small country can do to protect Christianity. One weapon to say is not a weapon really. It's charity and solidarity. We are trying to lead by example on how to deliver humanitarian aid to the violently persecuted Christians. On the other front, we are trying to protect Christian values from the woke nihilist madness. One example for that sort of ideological warfare, because we have our own representatives in Brussels and the European Parliament. We gain knowledge that the European Union, the political mainstream, is planning to release European directives on recognizing gay marriage and 70 some made up genders. And you know how the European Union works? If something becomes a EU directive, that will be imposed on the member states, and they have to implement it, adopt it to their own legislation. So we made a preventive strike there, and we have amended our constitution before that EU directive was released. Amended the constitution that there are men and women. Marriage is a sacred union between one man and one woman. Family is a married couple and children. And something that is very strange that we have to enshrine in our constitution is that a father is a man and a mother is a woman.
Yeah, you have to say it, right?
This is a strange thing to put it in a constitution, but the woke madness got so far away in some countries that now a man has the right to be pregnant, and this is disrespectful to the rules of the creation and the law of nature. So we enshrine that in our constitution, so we would be exempt from all EU directives. That made them furious. And that led to sanctions, political sanctions, and freezing the EU funds, which are Hungary's money. It's not a present to Hungary's money, so we cannot get to it.
Yeah, and you also added a pro-life, defining life to your constitution. Talk about that a minute as well.
Well, the Hungarian constitution that was adopted in 2011 defines lives from conception to natural death. It is also very important. We have a culture of life in Hungary. Interestingly, we don't have a strong restrictive regulation against abortion. Yet, during the tenure of the Orban government, we managed to cut the number of abortions in Hungary by 50%. How have we done it? With supportive measures. Our family policy is an extreme pro-family policy. For example, we give different type of allowance to mothers with many children. To name one example, by now every Hungarian woman with at least 3 children is completely exempt from personal income tax for the rest of her life. So if you're a Hungarian woman and you give birth to 3 children, you don't pay personal income tax forever. Not a single cent and penny. And one thing where the trick is that these different subsidies, tax cuts, and no interest state financed loans for families are not from childbirth, but from pregnancy. It gives an incentive, and this is how we increase the number of marriages by 50% and cut back on abortion by 50%.
Those numbers are incredible, given the population decrease everywhere. Right? I mean, America's facing it. Every country, I think, except the continent of Africa, and I think Israel has a pretty high birth rate as well. But with those very precious few exceptions, the birth rate's down, and people like your government. I mean, I commend the Hungarian government for taking those measures, right? Those very positive steps. It's amazing to see when a government takes positive steps that that people will get married. If you affirm marriage, and don't take it, tear it apart. Or if you affirm life, you'll have life. If you affirm marriage, you have marriage. You get more of it. And I think that's incredible. And as a Christian, I mean, I think Viktor Orban, he said something that struck me the other day, which was I think he said we're a Christian government. Is that how he put it?
Yes, well, by definition, we are Christian democratic parties governing the Hungarian government, governing Hungary for 15 years now, and we can be doing that for 15 years because the Hungarian people re-elect us every single time with constitutional supermajority. And even though 40 years of communist oppression has done its damage, the number of churchgoers in Hungary are unfortunately small. There are two generations missing. Yet, at least culturally, the overwhelming majority of Hungarians identify as Christians. So they elect every single time in the last four elections Christian democratic parties, Viktor Orban's party and its junior coalition or party alliance member, the Christian Democratic People's Party, into power. Maybe to some American viewers, the Christian democratic political ideology does not make sense. It is somewhat close to the American type of Judeo-Christian value-based politics. There are differences as well, but something a reminder about the European Union. The European Union is not an inherently evil liberal construct. In fact, the European Union was funded by German, French, and Italian and other Christian democratic self-identified Christian democratic politicians, historical figures who, learning from the Bible and from the Christian teaching, decided that we had these two painful and tragic world wars in Europe. It's time to make peace, to reconcile and form one community. This is how it all started. By now, after 70 years, it got hijacked and kidnapped by the extremist liberals. But with the formation of a new European international party family called the Patriots, we are going to take back Brussels. It will just take some time, but you can be positive that we are going to reconquer Europe for Christianity and Christian civilization.
Yeah, now Hungary has to reconquer the West. You had to take care of the East. Now your job is to take care of the West.
Or believe me, there is an awakening in the Western countries as well. The people there realize that this woke idea that is portrayed to be about tolerance is nothing of tolerance. It is a censorship. It is totalitarian. But more importantly, they understand that the political leadership committed treason, high treason against them when they invited all those illegal migrants to Europe without asking the people. We in Hungary asked the people about migration. 98% of the Hungarian people said that we want none of it. They forget the political leadership who always refer to democracy, forget to make it a democratic process and ask the people in the West. And there is an awakening. The patriotic parties and movements are getting stronger and stronger.
Yeah, it's fascinating to watch. It's heartening. It's joyful to see the move to the right. While the Financial Times decries it as fascism or whatever, the fact is people want to have a say in their government. in the countries in which they live, and they should have a say in their government, in a democracy. You mentioned that rise in Western Europe. You're seeing it in France with Le Pen's party, AfD in Germany, the Reform UK movement. Of course, that's not in the EU, but still, you have that movement in Great Britain, Spain. That, and you all are a part of that. I mean, Hungary is, Viktor Orban is kind of the Donald Trump of Europe. I mean, he's the guy who's pulling together these parties, and he has didn't he put together a political action committee called like the Patriots Pack or something? Tristan, does that ring a bell?
Yes, and many in the West and internationally see Prime Minister Viktor Orban as a key figure in that. But maybe the parallel with President Trump is not the right parallel, because the Prime Minister Orban also are very well aware that once again he's a Prime Minister of a 10 million country. So we don't have the diplomatic or the political might, and we don't claim that we are the diplomatic or the political might, but we are trend setters in policy. We have the courage to come up with new politics, new approaches, patriotic and then Christian approaches. And why Brussels and the great power centers hate us and infuriated by the Orban government is that they say that we release the spirit from the battle here. For example, when the migration wave hit Europe in 2014 in epic proportions, a great threat, then the Western leaders all took the position that, well, let's do this refugees welcome. We invite everyone. They will be a great addition to our labor force and society. Of course, they didn't. They put a pressure on the social systems on these countries. They have cultural conflicts. There are some security risks associated, and with all those refugee welcome, beautiful BS going on, Prime Minister Orban had the courage to say that we will have none of that, and immediately built a border fence along the Hungarian southern border. And then there were all the cursing and the smear words on the Hungarian government. They were talking just whatever you just mentioned, fascist, racist, and whatever that was going on in the most disrespectful way for years. And then the countries, when the political leadership finally heard the voice of their own people and seen the results, the terror attacks, the fact that they are not integrating to the society but transforming the culture, one after another, they implemented copies of the measures of the Hungarian government, what we have done years ago. One thing they forgot to apologize. They forgot to say that, sorry guys, you were right. Not even that they apologize or just at least admit that the Hungarian government was right. Still, we have to pay that 1 million euros fine every single day for protecting our borders and the European Union's free movements zones borders. So they never learned, but I'm sure that their voters will eventually come to the point where they don't want any more of them, and will vote patriotic political forces into their own governments.
We've talked about so many things, Tristan. I mean, my brain is kind of exploding here. I'm thinking, okay, you've got the, your very intentional work to directly. So a couple. Let me just back up. So in my space, as you know, we are raising money for not-for-profit organizations. In America, you have a for-profit space. You have so you have a private sector, a public sector. We have a nonprofit sector in the United States of America, which is largely not existent in Europe. So when you have a good government come in, like the Viktor Orban government, you will create policy prescriptions and policy that does things like help persecuted Christians overseas, and you'll create a book, you'll publish a book that's factual, that backs it up and says, "Hey, here are the facts. The reason the Hungarian government's gonna get involved is because there's so much Christian persecution around the world, and none of the other governments are tackling this issue. You're willing to do that." And the other thing you've talked about, which, the family policy, changing the constitution, tax policy, immigration policy. I mean, it's like a full frontal assault, ideological assault, on the woke left. If you all sat there and were quiet and just humbly went about your business and just went along to get along, uh, there'd be no fines, no issues. But you're pushing back, saying, "No, this is wrong." Um, I was there at CPAC in Budapest a few years ago, and one of the things I picked up was Viktor Orban's conservative rules for success, which is hanging in my office, in fact. And he talks about playing by our own rules, expose your opponent's true intentions, economy, 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 have faith, read every day. And this is all practical stuff for people that on the right, if you do these things, you think for yourself, you think out of the box, you think in the best interest of your own people and your country. And you all have done this year in and year out, to the chagrin, of course, of Brussels. And one of the biggest places is your advocacy for peace. And shocking as that is, advocating for peace is just not the thing to do right now. And I know Prime Minister Orban has talked about, hosting the possible peace talks with Putin and, Zelensky over there in the Ukraine. So talk about that a minute. The priority of peace. That's another big, big piece here.
Yes, Russia's war in Ukraine is very close to us in the physical and in the other sense as well. It is happening in a neighboring country. It is happening to some ethnic Hungarians in Ukraine as well. They are suffering in the war. Ethnic Hungarians also die in the Ukrainian defense forces every day. And also it has very strong economic effects on Hungary because of the war and also because of a mistaken sanction policy against Russia, which doesn't lead to peace but hurts everyone in the process. And also it is happening close to us. So one thing that we can be certain, and this is what we say, that this war cannot be resolved on the battleground. This is the plain reality. But the Western point of view is that they are not giving up on the idea that Russia, who are the aggressors, can be completely destroyed or defeated on the battleground. We see no reality for that. So from day one of this war, our position was that we have to do everything to have an immediate ceasefire and then start the peace talks. Until we have an immediate ceasefire, every single day, thousands of people die on the front line and in the back country of the war. This is something that we have firmly believed in. We think that this is the Christian position. First, stop the bloodshed. But unfortunately, in the Western world, for a long time, we had only one ally in this regard, in the pro-peace camp, and that was the Holy See, the Vatican. All of the rest, the European Union countries, Brussels, during the Biden presidency, they were in this war mentality, and what they have been doing more like contributed to the escalation of the war than finishing it. Now we were it for many reasons for Donald Trump to be elected as president of the United States for the second time. It's not about being friendly to Russia. It's not about being puppets of Putin, as those who are arguing for peace are often labeled. It's about the practical realization that there is no resolve on the battleground, that we have to stop a bloodshed as soon as possible, and the only way to go for that are through peace talks. And we very much respect and we very much appreciate the great results that the Trump administration achieved already in resolving, or at least creating peace in many other conflicts. And we were very happy to pass down this role of being the Western leader of the peace camp to the US administration. And at this point, whatever we can do as a small 10 million people country, we will assist the peace efforts of President Trump in this manner.
Yeah, and it's remarkable. I mean, I mean, if you sit back and think about it, Tristan, that you're the only country that said, "Hey, let's not have war. Let's not get involved in this." And I would put this war squarely at the feet of the United States of America. I mean, we told Russia things under the Biden administration that we had never said before. That we're going to allow the Ukrainians to come into NATO, which, by the way, NATO, formed by the Allies after the war, it was Eisenhower, who was a supreme commander of the war in Europe and served as a two-term Republican president, said, if NATO's still here in 10 years, we failed. It should be done after 10 years. And here we are 75, 80 years later, it's still there and still picking fights with Russia. And I just, for the life of me, can't understand why we'd want to pick a fight with Russia. But I think it comes back to maybe my gut is that the Russians are in the East. They're not woke. They do have a firm belief in religion and God and family. Say what you will about their, some of the other things they deal with, maybe, but on those issues, they stand very united against a lot of Brussels and the Brussels policies. And certainly, if you put missiles in their backyard, they're going to have something to say about that. And I think that we egged them on and drew them out into this thing, and that's unfortunate. And God willing, Trump will do all he can, along with Viktor Orban, to end this thing and save lives, to your point, and be a president of peace and a prime minister of peace that that save lives. So that's just hats off for doing that. It's again another courageous stand that cut against the grain of every European leader. They all just kind of went in and said, okay, the United States says we got to go to war. Let's go to war. Let's get behind this thing. And another place you've been very active is the state of Israel. The Hungarians have in Budapest the largest synagogue in Europe, right downtown. And so you have a Jewish sector there downtown. I've been to it. It's a fun area, by the way. A lot of great restaurants and but you all have been friends of Israel, and you've done, again, you're pushing back against the narrative that Netanyahu is a terrorist. You said, no, we're not going to arrest him. He's fighting for his country, his countrymen. So again, you guys have taken a very different approach to things, and you're strategic. I think a lot of people miss that Hungary is kind of on that borderline of East and West. You're kind of that door, right? I mean, you've got Russia on one side, you've got, the Italians and the French on the other side, and you're balancing that. You always have. And it's commendable what you're doing. I hats off. But before we close, I got a few more minutes. I want you to, let's go back to Hungary Helps a minute, because Americans can help you. I mean, it is a government program, but Americans could support you. Is that correct?
Well, yes. First of all, many organizations and charities and ministries in the world deal with persecuted Christians. I know lots of friends and allies in the US as well. what makes us unique that this is a governmental program. It was decided by the Hungarian government that we do this. We use the diplomatic capacities of a state, of a country, to promote the support for Christian persecution. And this way we have a program where we are trying to give an answer to any emergency facing Christians. So, for example, we deliver humanitarian fast relief to Christian communities affected by terrorist attacks. This year, we provided humanitarian aid to the Greek Orthodox Christians in Syria who suffered a terrible church bombing attack in Damascus, Syria, June 22nd. Immediately, we dispatched humanitarian fast relief to provide aid to those families who had to treat wounded surviving people. Similarly, in March, there were 70 Protestant Christians beheaded in a church in eastern part of Congo, the DRC. And that case too, for the surviving victims and for those families who had lost their breadwinners in the attack, we have provided a fast relief. We have also larger programs. We have largely contributed to the reconstruction of Christian communities in northern Iraq on the Nineveh Plains, who were occupied and attacked and committed genocide against by ISIS in 2014 and 15. We have contributed to the survival of 2,000-year-old Christian communities in Iraq and Syria who still pray in Aramaic, still pray today in the language of our Lord Jesus Christ. We provide university scholarships for African and Asian and Nicaraguan Christians at Hungarian universities. We provide full tuition with one condition, that once they graduate from the Hungarian universities, they return to their communities and help them to revive. So we do all different type of work. Nowadays, we have a strong focus on Nigeria, where Christians are murdered every day. They say that at least 10 Christians are martyred in Nigeria on an average, yet the word barely spoke about it until also President Trump 3 weeks ago took a strong position about that. We also support Christians in Pakistan, and I could go on. This is a publicly financed program, so it's financed by the Hungarian taxpayers. We are not usually collecting donations, but if someone decides that they would like to support our work, they are free to do. There is a way or channel to that. If you go on our website, the English version of the hungaryhelps.gov.hu, so that's hungaryhelps.gov as in government.hu as in Hungary, you will immediately see how you can donate. Once again, this is not our main profile. We don't do donation campaigns. We encourage everyone to find a charity or work a church ministry. But if you are supportive of our work and you want to exactly support those communities whom we also work with, then you are free to do so. And of course, we appreciate that very much.
Yeah, I don't tell our conservative American audience to give to the government. But in this case, I would say you can make a contribution to the government, and this is money well spent. It's like giving to a charity. And what you're doing is incredible work. And to your point, the fact that you are a government brings in an interesting angle that nonprofits in the United States don't have, which is you can go and talk to the heads of state and bring to bear your own government to say, hey, we want to talk to you about and have a conversation about Christian persecution or what have you. So that's a unique, it's kind of a unique, deal that you have there that we just don't have in the States and don't have access to that. But well, Tristan, thank you for coming on. We will put all this in the notes. We'll put your X account Yeah, we've enjoyed it, and so we will be in touch. We'll have you back at some point. You've got a lot of things coming up in the next year in Hungary. We didn't get to our friend George Soros. Donald Trump now has singled him out over here. You guys have been doing that as well over there. We didn't go there, but there's a lot to talk about, and maybe we'll have peace. The Russians and the Ukrainians will be at peace, and we can end that war. And yeah, yeah, and have a Christmas where the Prince of Peace can rejoice in the actions of what you all have done and what the United States has done under the Trump administration. But otherwise, God bless you, my friend. Go and do good work, and we'll be in touch with you.
God bless you too. God bless you too. Thank you very much.
You bet. Take care, Tristan.
Against the Current podcast requires more than a conversation. It takes action, research, and collective wisdom. If today's episode resonated with you, we'd love to hear your insights. Join the conversation and help us shape the future together. We'll be back with more stories, strategies, and real-world solutions that are making a difference for everyone. In the meantime, be sure to subscribe, rate, write a review, and share it with someone you think would benefit from it too. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you on the next episode.